This episode of Sesslers Something is brought to you by Tom's Tomb of Limited Interaction. All right, everyone. It's the end of the year. It's that time for reflection. It's that time to look forward. It's that point of time where you make promises to yourself that you try so hard to keep, and then you feel guilty around about the third week of January. Yes, it's my favorite time of the year. 2012. Well, it's been interesting for me. I can definitely tell you that. It's also been very interesting for the game industry. I've been going over my head about sort of the major stories, the big stuff, people acting badly about women, THQ, not really there anymore, Chapter 11. At the end of the day, the story that I think really just kind of maintained and proved itself to stay interesting since very early on in this year is Kickstarter. And not so much Kickstarter, the company that's allowing for the crowdsourcing that clearly is funding a lot of very interesting game projects, but just the idea of what is happening here in the industry, that some big names, Tim Schafer, Peter Molyneux, the Obsidian guys, just kind of circumventing what the normal relationship was in being with a publisher to allow themselves to actually make the games they want to make on their own terms. And I think that is a significant philosophical shift, if not a potentially financial shift. But I don't think we're going to really see if this works out for everyone's favor until maybe 1 to 2 years from now, when we see what happens when these games actually come out. But I think you're starting to see the strain finally emerge in what has been kind of a more contemporary entertainment business model, with funding coming from the big publisher and then having a lot of control over the game, and these games being beholden to a lot of people, some of whom are very creative, and some of whom I actually think in the publishers aren't creative whatsoever. I can say this with a fair amount of confidence because I came out of the mainstream entertainment industry, and let me tell you, it's pervasive. Back to Kickstarter and all the fun things about that, it really is also been able to bridge this divide between that core set of gamers who are really into the medium, who are really into the creativity of these guys, and the people who actually make it. I mean, the idea that you're just kind of throwing a little bit of money at a project you're interested in, it just makes sense. It's almost like what I was talking about in my first Sesslers Something, that sense that you want to invest yourselves by engaging with it. And I think what you're seeing is people who have become quite passionate about a lot of these projects. Now, I named some very big names, and there are also some much smaller projects that are out there. And there's been a fair amount of controversy whether or not someone like a Tim Schafer or Peter Molyneux really deserves to be going to Kickstarter. Should it be people who really have no finances whatsoever and really need that kind of support? And I understand where that's coming from, but I really think it's a much stronger statement that these long-standing talents in the industry have chosen to say, you know what, it doesn't work for me when I'm beholden to a big, scary company that makes my game come out a little bit too early, as Peter Molyneux himself admitted with Fable 3, or wants it to be changed in a certain way, or wants to present it to the public as a game that it is not. These names want to rediscover the essential experimentation, the sense of passion that is, I think, requisite if you really want to have a good game or you want to move the game industry forward. And Kickstarter comes along and it offers this rather elegant way with which to accomplish that. I am not saying that there's a silver bullet to be found inside of Kickstarter. I look at certain projects like the Ouya, and it does give me a little bit of concern as to how it can really fulfill on what they're saying they're going to be doing. I think there are going to be some disappointments. Some of these games may not come out. Some of these games may come out and they're going to suck. I think, while it's not the same thing, the incident with War Z really highlights that there's a lot of trust that really hasn't been followed through on in a lot of these circumstances. But regardless, there's something very invigorating about what's happening with Kickstarter. And I think on a personal level, I'm responding to that in my transition from the somewhat ivory tower existence I had while working in the low end of cable television to where I am now at Rev3 Games. The stuff we're putting up on the web is having an immediate response from people who view it. It's that sense of direct connection with the people who are consuming what you are working on. And it really is one of the most thrilling things I've gotten to experience. And I think even for some of these old salty game developers who are stepping into it, for them too, it's a sense that, yeah, there's something new and there's something exciting and there's a reason why we all work in this industry in the first place, because it really is the only thing I can imagine myself doing. So we're wrapping up 2012. We'll be talking a little bit about 2013 next week, but hey kids, let's kickstart the new year. That's what I think. I would love to know what you guys think is the story of 2012 that defines this year in gaming. Also, make sure that you subscribe to Rev3 Games. Just hit that subscribe button. You do it at youtube.com/Rev3Games. You can also do it on iTunes. You can also go to revision3.com. Also, check out my interview with Peter Molyneux. It really does touch on a lot of what's happening here in the world of Kickstarter and what it's like to work for a really big company.